So how much does camping really cost? In this video, we'll answer 3 questions. How much does it cost to go camping if you don't have gear already and you have to buy it all? Secondly, how to save money and substitute to lower down your camping costs. And lastly, how much does it cost to go camping if you already have your gear? I'm Peter from carcampingtips.com, and we're going to try and tackle these tricky questions. The total cost for a family of 3 for 2 nights ranges a lot. It can start from all the way from $300 all the way up to even $1,600, depending on how much gear you do and what activities you do. I've had some of my favorite memories in my entire life outside. So really, whatever the costs may be for camping, they're totally worth it. I mean, whether it's been backpacking or hiking, car camping, glamping, just the experience of being with friends and family, or even by myself, just being in nature, it's a great experience and it's healing. It's wonderful. So the thing is, even with that, even though it is worth it, it can be very expensive to go camping, especially initially, because there's a lot of gear associated with it. And so that was the purpose of this video, to help you plan for the costs and help you find ways to maybe make those costs lower and just make it so you and your family can go and have great experiences without having to worry so much about how much money you're spending because you've already planned for it. So we're going to jump into a situation that will help us to guide the conversation. Me and my wife our family is just 2 people, it's just us, but we have another one coming soon. So in our example, we'll have two adults and 1 child. And it'll be for a 2-night camping stay. So we're going to cover a few examples. The first one being, how much does it cost for a family with almost no camping gear and not even a lot of outdoor gear, and they are wanting to go for gear that is of reasonable quality? And then we'll talk about the same family with a couple ideas to how they can save money and still have reasonable quality gear. Then we're going to talk about how much does it cost for a family with almost no gear, going for the cheapest of the cheap options and improvising and substituting quite a lot, just to show the different price ranges that you can expect. So then we'll finish up with second-time campers for campers that have already got their gear and how much they can expect for their trip to cost.
All right, so first we're going to cover the example of a family that doesn't have any camping gear and what it would cost. So as you can see, including all the different categories, a 2-day camping trip for 3 can come out to $1,686 if they decide to get reasonable quality camping gear and decide to get everything. So let's go into the categories to kind of explain some of this cost. Transportation, we have the city miles and highway miles that you plan on driving, as well as your mileage and your average price of gas. That comes to your mileage. The depreciation here, it doesn't affect the total. It's just for curiosity's sake. A lot of companies, they have a depreciation rate they give to their vehicles. And I mean, if you were curious, you can see kind of what the cost would be for your depreciation. And activities. So in this trip, we're planning on doing a cave tour. The cave tour, the kids are getting in free. So that means that it would be a total of $30. And then the daily fees, that we have one child, 2 adults for 3 days. The daily park fee would be $3 for the kids, $6 for the adults. That comes out to a total of $75, including the $30 for the campsite rental. So this, if you come back here, you see that the transportation and the activities, and the daily fees are pretty small in comparison to the rest. Most of the cost is coming from the per person gear and the shared gear. So let's dive into why that's so expensive. So a family, typically if a family spends a lot of time indoors and they don't have a lot of the camping gear, they may not have jackets and clothing that is sufficient for cold weather and especially sleeping in cold weather. So thermal underwear is an option that can make your stay much more comfortable. Let's say that this is in the fall where it's getting a little bit chilly, and so this family decided they wanted to purchase more of clothing more camping clothing so that they can be more comfortable. and including flashlights and headlamps. And really some of the cost is coming from these hiking shoes. They're planning on going on a day hike the next day. And so hiking shoes for men and women can be, $80. I mean, that's actually on the medium end. There's much higher quality that you could get for hiking shoes. And they're getting a few camp chairs, and there's no rain forecasted, so they're not planning on getting rain gear. But if they did, then that would increase the price even more. Then they're not planning on going to the river. But and again, here's a big price point is the sleeping bags if you're planning on getting medium quality sleeping bags. There's much higher, a lot of more money you can spend. They're planning on spending $90 for the adult sleeping bags. That's coming up to $180. They're not planning on getting a 2-man tent, but if you were in a large group, that'd be something that they would consider as getting some 2-man tents for large groups. And just wanted to point out that this is like an estimated price range. That is the purpose for that is to give a guesstimate of like how much you can expect from the bottom end to the top end. This is just a shot in the dark. There's just from experience, but you can definitely get gear outside and inside this range. All right, so that's the per person gear, and again, all of that is coming to $1,000. So they're planning on getting a lot, and that's the bulk of where this first camping trip is coming from. Onto the shared gear, they have. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. They are planning on getting a camping bin, a camping table, and they don't have any camping specific kitchen, so they're deciding to get a lot of that and buy that right out. And then we have the tarp, and I have the tent here somewhere. And there it is, family tent. So they're deciding to go in the middle of the road. For a large tent, you could spend several $100s, but for a medium, not a bad quality tent, they're opting for a $100 tent. You can get a decent tent for that price, and then they are getting the rest of the gear, including they're planning on going that hiking trip, and so they're getting a day hike backpack, which includes a camelback, which you can get for $50 on the lower end, to be honest, and so on. So that's all the shared gear. And their food. This is a rough guesstimate because it's kind of difficult to project how much food costs. But to be conservative, they're assuming that breakfast is going to be $3 per person, lunch $4, and then dinner $7, and snacks $3. Really, snacks can actually be a lot more expensive, but these can be cheaper depending on how well you're able to plan. But they're for a 2-day camping trip. Well, it's 2.5 day really. 2-night camping trip, and they're going to be in the park for 3 days. That comes to $111. All right, so that's if they decide to get everything and to borrow nothing, not improvise. They can spend $1,686. So how can they save a little bit of money? Well, the first thing to attack are those big ticket items. If they opted to borrow some sleeping bags from a friend, like maybe they're not sure they want to get into camping a lot, or they could opt for cheaper sleeping bags. And so, but let's pretend like they are going to, actually, let's edit this workbook. Let's pretend that they are going to borrow the 2 sleeping bags for the adults, and still they're going to buy the kid sleeping bag. That brings us down to $1,500. So already we're knocking out quite a bit of money. And rather than getting all this cold gear, let's say that they instead were going to just bundle up on existing clothing. Let's get rid of the thermal underwear, and they decided let's just bring more clothing. And again, with the hiking shoes, they're like, we don't go hiking all that often yet, so maybe we can just go with our regular tennis shoes. And then let's go back to the shared gear. Oh, let's go to the women's hiking shoes right there. And the trek poles. I mean, they're nice to have, but I mean, we're not planning on hiking Mount Everest, so let's just try going without that. And then the day hike, we have a school backpack that is probably going to work just fine. So let's say no to need to buy that. All right, cool. So they've knocked down some of that price to $1,000. So as you can see, this helps you to see, when you write everything out, you can see, okay, these are my big ticket items that I can take off that can really make this camping trip a lot cheaper. So that is still, they're planning on buying a lot. They're not planning on a lot of improvising. So that's that family. That's that example. So the next example is the low budget family. So this is someone who's not wanting to spend a lot of money on their first trip camping, and they're deciding to improvise a lot. They can spend as little as $349 and possibly less depending on how much improvisation. So the transportation, activities, and everything else is going to stay the same. But they are going to improvise a lot more. So as you can see, much of the per person gear is like they're almost buying nothing because they are going to be bringing a lot more. So for example, for the kids in the sleeping bags, rather than buying a sleeping bag for the kid, they're bringing just extra blankets, lots of them, so that there won't be any problem with being too cold. And they're getting sleeping bags for the adults, but they are opting for the much cheaper sleeping bags. And because of that, they need to bring extra blankets from home so that they don't get too cold. And instead of camp chairs, they are using the park bench. They are using the flashlights on their phones and the toiletries that they use at home rather than camping specific or travel specific toiletries. And everyone is sharing the same Bubba keg. That's this big mug of water. And that they're just, using existing clothing and jackets and hoodies to get by on for staying away from cold. All right, now on to shared gear. Again, they have said no to most of these categories. And for example, they're not buying a camping stove. They're only going to go for wood this time. So their wood is actually a little bit more expensive than the other group because they are having to buy more wood because they're cooking with it. That's the only thing they're using to cook with. They still are getting a medical kit, but for example, they're using paper towels and they're using petroleum jelly and cotton ball fire starters to get their fire started. And they're just bringing existing spices and kitchen utensils, including a kitchen knife, spatula. And rather than a mess kit, they're just bringing plates and bowls from home. And they're getting a used cooler from a thrift store, so that's even below the estimated price range. You can get a fairly decent cooler from thrift store, so that's what they're opting for. And they're using Tupperware from home and getting some of these ingredients that are really useful for camping, such as cooking oil. And rather than getting a camping table, they're using the picnic table that's going to be at the campsite. And so all else equal, this family for their first camping trip, and this is bringing a lot of stuff from home, and they're going to be paying $350. So the difference between these two is quite significant. And I mean, this is completely realistic. Like we were going through this, we were thinking, oh man, we've actually bought a lot of these specific to adventuring and going outdoors. And we improvise, and we start out with improvising more, and over time, as time goes on, you buy more. But if you were to get everything at once, you could pay, this is still substituting some, but you could expect to pay $1,600 for all that gear. So no one should say that camping is free, because if you decide to get into it, you can pay a lot of money. Now, this is for a family that has all the gear already. They've already purchased everything, but they can still expect to pay $193, and most of that's coming from food, as you can see, but the activities and transportation are still the same. They have to buy a new headlamp. So that's one of the only additional costs that they have to pay. But otherwise, they don't have to buy any gear. But still, the transportation and daily fees cost, all that adds up. And so camping, even if you have already got a rhythm and you already have all the gear, camping can, you still should expect to pay. And really, if you get creative with your food and prepare using normal ingredients that you would get at home, that you would use for your home meals, and plan ahead, you can take down this food cost way down. But it is challenging. We've noticed with our camping trips that we tend to get lots of good snacks, and and make sure that we will not starve to death, even though we're only going to be there for a couple days. But this is going to be your challenge to keep those costs low. But all right, so those are the 3 categories. And again, this spreadsheet is available to you, and we'll show you how you can get there in a minute.
Hopefully that's helpful to help you plan your costs and be able to budget appropriately for the total costs of your camping trip. And the spreadsheet is available at carcampingtips.com/spreadsheet. And you can download it and customize it, add rows and categories, whatever you want. It's free and available for you. So hope that helps, and thanks for watching.